This is a 2300-year-old sculpture called the Didarganj Yakshi. The statue was discovered by locals on the banks of the river Ganga in Patna in the year 1917. One of the finest examples of early Indian art, it is typically dated to the Mauryan era because of the mirror-like polish that is also found on these Mauryan era pillars. The Mauryan Empire was the first ever pan-Indian empire as it covered most of the Indian subcontinent. Its founder was none other than Chandragupta Maurya, who came to the throne of Magad after overthrowing the Nanda dynasty. This much is known to most of us, but what isn't known is who exactly Chandragupta Maurya was or how he destroyed the mighty Nandas. For someone who founded such a mighty empire, Chandragupta Maurya's early life and origins are shrouded in mystery. So what were Chandragupta's origins and what is the story of his rise? Let's try answering these questions by taking a look at different sources. We have two kinds of sources about the Mauryas: literary sources or texts and inscriptions. Literary sources are again of two kinds: Western, that is Greek and Roman, and Indian. Greek and Roman sources on Alexander's invasion of India identify Chandragupta, who is called Sandracotus, as a man of humble origins who had a poor upbringing. These sources mention that around 325 BC, Sandracotus visited the Greek camp and urged Alexander to attack the Nanda Empire, but Alexander is said to have refused. Now let's move on to the Indian sources. The Puranas do not explicitly refer to the origin of the Mauryas. The Sanskrit play Mudra Rakshasa, written around the 5th century CE, which is roughly 700 to 800 years after the Mauryan Empire's founding, mentions that Chandragupta was the son of a Nanda king. The Kashmiri texts Brihad Katha Manjari and Katha Sarita Sagar also mention that Chandragupta Maurya was the son of a Nanda king. But according to several Buddhist sources, Chandragupta was a Kshatriya from the Maurya clan, which was either related to the Shakya clan of the Buddha or the Lichavis of Vaishali. Now coming to the inscriptions. Ashokan inscriptions do not mention anything about the origin of the Mauryas and are of no use here. The 2nd century Junagadh inscription of Rudradaman I and the 10th century Chalisgaon inscription mention the Mauryan emperors but don't give much personal information about them either. So such differences in the sources make it difficult to find out more about the origins of the Mauryas. Now how did Chandragupta Maurya establish his kingdom at Magad? Buddhist sources say that Chandragupta Maurya grew up in Pataliputra, where he attracted the attention of the teacher Chanakya, who took him to Takshashila and trained him to be a king. The Greek and Roman sources say that Chandragupta Maurya's military base was in the lower Sindh region. They also say that after Alexander's death, Chandragupta Maurya gathered men from the northwestern part of the subcontinent to wage war against the Nandas. Despite several initial failures, Chandragupta was able to destroy the Nanda Empire in about 4 to 5 years. But what happened to the Nanda Emperor? While Jain sources say that the Nanda Emperor was spared, other sources say that he was put to death. Chandragupta now became Emperor of Magad and appointed Chanakya as his minister. He put down several rebellions in provinces that were still loyal to the Nandas. He then focused his attention to the northwestern parts of India and extended his conquests. By 313 BC, the Maurya Empire's borders touched the Seleucid Empire, which was ruled by a former Greek general of Alexander. War soon broke out between the two powerful empires, but they soon brokered a peace. Chandragupta gained the easternmost Seleucid territories and in return handed over 500 elephants to Seleucus, who would use them in his wars against his western rivals. The Puranic sources tell us that Chandragupta Maurya ruled for around 24 years. His empire stretched from the Hindu Kush in the northwest to the Bay of Bengal in the east. Jain sources tell us that at the end of his life, Chandragupta abdicated the throne to become a monk and travelled to present-day Karnataka, where he spent his last days. Thus ends the story of the man who built one of the most powerful empires of ancient India.